But now, think about this, guys. So 124 this morning, people get this notification that there's a mandatory evacuation order.
By the way. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a mandatory evacuation order because of, again, from reading from their 124 press release, imminent flooding expected in the area. And as you might imagine, that would put people in panic mode, and people have left. Okay, so they have already left because of the 124 note that came out. So now we're being told that there is no imminent flooding, but we're still going to have this mandatory evacuation zone. And if you leave the mandatory evacuation zone, you can't come back even if there's no flooding on your street. So the family that left out of here at 1:30, 1:45, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock this morning, just with their hair on fire, trying to get out of here as fast as they can because of this imminent threat of flooding. Now they're in Katy, maybe they're in Houston, maybe they're somewhere high and dry. When they see this report, they go, oh, well, I'll go back home because there's no imminent threat of flooding. And the law enforcement is going to stop those people who live 45 minutes away, maybe 15 blocks away from where I am, and say, no, sorry, mandatory evacuation order, you can't go back in. Now, what are they going to do for housing? How are they going to live? Where are they going to live in a hotel room? For how long is this going to last? What are they going to eat? They got to eat at restaurants every single night. Is the county going to reimburse them for that? They never should have been forced to leave their homes to begin with if there wasn't an imminent threat of flooding. And that's the problem I think that folks around here have. At 124, when you're sleepy, and somebody's knocking on your door because they got this note, they say, hey, imminent threat of flooding, get out now. Well, some people already left. Yeah. You tell me that you're going to tell those people they're not allowed back in their homes. Sorry, you're not flooding, you're not going to flood, but hey, go rent a hotel room.
And,
really?
And Mr.
That's what's going to happen?
Mr. Ealing, it is your job now to go back and pin them down and say,
we're going to find out.
Let these folks get back into their homes. But good catch, and thank you very much for clearing that up. Now to go back to Jeff Linder. At this point, if he is still there, and I hope he is. Are you still, there you are. First of all, I have to teasingly say you may be one of the most famous people in our area right now. We have listened to you every day, several times a day, and thank you for all of the guidance when it came to understanding opening up these reservoirs and why you had to do it. I know we've asked you 1,000 questions about it, and you've been incredibly patient throughout all of that, explaining to a whole bunch of non-engineers, non-meteorologists why you had to do this. But I want to get back to what you said. Does it mean now that the flooding danger has passed all the way across the board? You even mentioned Buffalo Bayou.
Yes, really, we are seeing recessions in all of our channels over on the east side. I don't want to forget about the east side. There's so much focus on Addicks and Barker, and rightly so for right now. But there is still flooding going on the east side in Cedar Bayou and on the San Jacinto River and up north on Cypress Creek. And that water is falling, and those areas should begin to recede back within their banks sometime on Friday or early Saturday. The problem we face now with Addicks and Barker is that those pools are going to stay high for a very long period of time. They're going to very slowly fall. And so the release rates are going to be maintained out of the floodgates on Addicks and Barker, which is going to keep Buffalo Bayou high. So we're really not expecting any change in the water level on Buffalo Bayou for the next several days. So all of the homes that are currently being impacted, all of the bridges that are currently being impacted are going to stay impacted at least into the weekend and probably into some portion of next week.
Okay, now, so if we talk with Sheriff Nels and tell him the situation and say, hey, you got to lift this mandatory evacuation, he has the authority to do that?
I believe, I'm not sure who issued the mandatory evacuation. That might have come from a local county official in Fort Bend County. Yeah. But as I've said, there is no additional threat for structure flooding in that portion of Barker Reservoir. And the evacuation, my understanding of that evacuation is to really help the containment of the flow of people in and out of where water is impacting. First, you don't want people going back into their homes and having a problem, and then first responders who are already taxed to the limit have to go in there and pull them out. So we don't want people doing that, and that's not only in Fort Bend County, that's across the area. We don't want people trying to get back into their homes right now if they're flooded. Just stay out of those areas. And whatever you do, even though it's not pouring rain, the turnaround don't drown still applies here.
Right.
Just because the sun's out, you don't need to be driving through water. We don't even know if some of these roads still even exist under this water. There could be significant infrastructure damage to some of these roads and bridges, and if you drive over and you fall in, then you could be swept away still. It is still dangerous in these floodwaters, and I think that's something we need to make sure we're conveying here over the next several days out in that area. Even with the sun out, water can still be dangerous.
But throughout the area, Jeff, we've seen a tremendous amount of rapid receding.
Yes, we have, and that's, as we've been talking about, once the drainage systems in the bayou were able to finally catch up, and it took about 4 days for this massive rain we had, once they've been able to catch up, they have effectively drained out a lot of the areas.
Yeah.
And so that's the positive news, and so, now we're going to transition from the rescue and that type of effort into this recovery effort, which is going to be a very long-term process, because a lot of homes were flooded very deeply, a lot of homes have been damaged severely, and this is very likely the largest structure flood event we've ever faced in this city and county. So the recovery, the long-term recovery, is going to be with us, and it's going to be more of a marathon than a sprint. It is going to continue for a long period of time.
Well,